So, Berto, have you seen the new episodes of Black Mirror?
I have watched a few so far. I haven't finished the season.
Season 4?
Season 4.
Yeah, I binged the whole season. I wanted to sort of stretch it out a little bit because each episode is like a little movie, you know? And I was like, oh, there's only 6 episodes and I gotta make it last, but I just blew through
them.
Yeah.
I think I've seen 4 episodes. I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah. So we're gonna spoil Black Mirror. We're gonna talk about at least the first 2 episodes. And it is an experience if it's spoiled, it'll ruin the experience.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to.
So all you got to do, it's on Netflix. Go to Netflix, watch the first 2 episodes of Black Mirror. Each one is about an hour-ish, maybe a little more. And it's a great show. Watch it, come back. Yeah. All right, so let's get into it. This is the Psychology in Seattle podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor.
My name is Humberto Castañeda. I like to spoil movies.
The first episode, USS Callister, directed by Toby Haynes, who is a British television director. He worked on Doctor Who and Sherlock. Written by Charlie Brooker, who is the creator of the show, and also written by William Bridges. The cast is Jesse Plemons. He plays Robert Daly. Do you know this guy?
He looks so familiar. I mean, he looked a little bit like Matt Damon's rougher around the edges brother.
Right. So he's been in Fargo, actually, the TV show, and it has been in Black Mass, the one with the one about Whitey Bulger.
Okay.
He's a great actor. He's been in a lot of other things. Jesse Plemons. I think he was in Friday Night Lights, the TV show. Kristen Milioti as Nanette Cole.
Isn't she in How I Met Your Mother? Isn't she the mother?
Yeah, I don't know who she is, but she's in that TV show. Yeah, she's also in Fargo. So she's the mother. She's the How I Met Your.
She's the mother.
She's the How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah, she's the mother. Well, actually, sorry, because there's a twist. So spoiler alert. But anyways, she is in How I Met Your Mother.
Jimmy Simpson plays James Walton. He is one of the McPoyle brothers, and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Right.
And he's also in Westworld.
Yeah.
And other things. Billy Magnussen plays the sort of douchebag guy, and he's in Inger Goes West. And Aaron Paul, the guy from Breaking Bad, the sidekick in Breaking Bad, he's the gamer 691 at the end. That is just voice. Anyway.
Oh, wait, that's his voice?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so the plot, just going over the plot, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Berto, but so Daly, he's a programmer and is sort of treated badly by people at work, kind of. But
and he's not just a programmer, he's a founder of apparently a very successful video game company.
Yeah. He's a brilliant
co-founder.
Yeah.
CTO, he's the head chief technology officer.
Yeah. And he is sort of treated badly, but he also sort of self-imposes it because he's real awkward with
He's
people.
portrayed as an socially awkward, nerdy, programmer whose partner seems to have taken advantage of him to some extent. Certainly seems to take all the credit.
Right.
Doesn't treat him nicely, and we get this sense immediately where he's like, he wants to be one of the normal people, but he doesn't really know how to go about it.
Right. And actually, as we're talking about it, because a lot of the talk of this episode is like, it's like, nerd bashing, and it's like,
oh, has there been?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Or like, it's attacking beta males, because there's a lot of talk on the internet. A lot of people who watch Black Mirror, a lot of people who watch Star Trek are very into the whole notion around alpha and beta, you know?
Well, I was big, just to foreshadow and spoil the shit out of everything, but basically, this is a big commentary. I don't know when they wrote this episode, but it is a big commentary on the big Me Too stuff, on the sexual harassment and everything.
Yeah, because
it's essentially someone in power, and we find out that he's abusing that power with some creatures.
Interesting, yeah, right. So Daly, he steals people's DNA from cups and stuff at work, and he makes a copy of them on his computer at home. Yeah. And in a virtual world, and he's basically creating an early version of a game that he will release at a later time.
Oh, actually, no, the game is already out.
Oh,
but he's got a private version of that game.
Oh,
the thing that's coming out is a patch, an update, a big update to the game.
Oh.
And he's got a private version of the game where he can do his own stuff. It's like a sandbox server.
Interesting.
Yeah.
He lives like so he can enter the game too through basically like a VR brain chip thing.
Yeah, they put these little, like a little circular thing on his temple, and it seems to white out his eyes, and
right, which we'll get into. And he enters the game, and he's like Captain Kirk on Star Trek. They have a different show that they are calling it, but it is Star Trek, the original Star Trek. And he even sort of sounds like Captain Kirk, kind of looks like him. And when he's in this virtual world, he's super mean to everyone, and he's just, he basically makes them into slaves.
Well, I should say, when the episode opens, it's great because it seems like you're watching a Star Trek, a 60s Star Trek episode.
Right. Like, I had no idea where this is at. I'm just
where
like,
are they going with this?
I'm like, so it's going to be an entire Star Trek episode or something? I just thought, what is happening?
And at first, it's not evident what the problem is, because, he doesn't act that, like, when the show opens, he's acting like Captain Kirk, so he's not being overly mean or anything.
Right.
And they're tackling they're going up against some ship that's in there trying to fire on them and all these things, and so it really feels like an episode of
totally, yeah,
down to the filter they're using.
Totally,
yeah.
Then he brings a new woman that he meets at work into the game by getting her DNA. She figures out a way to escape his torture by essentially driving the ship into a wormhole that is supposed to delete them. They're trying to essentially commit suicide, or not commit, but they're trying to suicide themselves because they would rather die than be tortured by him anymore.
And they don't necessarily have to be tortured as long as they follow his every command, submit to him kissing and grabbing them whenever he wants, and bow down to him on a constant basis.
Right. And live the experience of being in a very limited space. You're basically in a prison,
right? And this is why I'm saying that it was such a commentary on the sexual harassment, because you could see him saying, "Hey, you have a choice. If you want, I could just torture you, or I could banish you to some planet."
Yeah.
So they felt they didn't have a choice but to sit there and do whatever he wanted of them.
Yeah. There's a space battle, and they actually do escape, and they're thinking they're going to die, but instead they actually enter into the outside world game.
Yeah.
And it's a space game.
Right. And
Daly, the programmer, CTO guy, is trapped in his version of the game, and it's assumed that he dies because he can't eat or drink because he's hooked up to that game.
I mean, if he doesn't die, it's because someone like maybe his co-founder partner checked on him, and maybe he can be taken to the hospital or something.
Right. So how many out of 10 stars would you give this episode, bro?
That's interesting, because are we going by like movie ratings or by TV show ratings?
TV show ratings.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I really enjoyed it. I would give it a 9.
I gave it a 7.
Okay.
I thought it was definitely a good episode, but it's not my favorite episode of Black Mirror.
Oh, wait. I got to be careful, because like the Christmas one is my favorite, and I don't think I could give it a 10. So that would be a 9. So maybe this is an 8 for me.
Yeah. So now, but people love this episode. The press is talking about, reviewers are saying it's the best episode of season 4,
I don't agree with that, but I do believe it's great. So I'd say, I'd give it an 8.
Yeah. So let's talk about the good things first. They totally nailed, as you were saying, the feel and the look of old Star Trek. I mean, everything. The sounds, the look. Daily, Jesse Plemons nails a Captain Kirk impersonation, but it's not over the top.
No.
I was like, oh, he's kind of acting like Captain Kirk. And then I was like, wait a second. He is Captain Kirk.
Yeah.
Like the way there's a parody way to act like William Shatner.
I'm going to say things like this.
And then there's a way that you can act like him, and it's actually like him. You know what I mean?
It's actually, another way to think about it is, imagine that they had to recast someone to be the captain of the Enterprise. And you obviously, when you're recasting a show, you can't have them do an impression. It's got to be a believable new person.
Right.
And that's what he was doing, which is great.
And at the very end of this episode, I was like, I want to see the rest of this story.
Right.
Because now they're in the virtual world, and they are, if they get blown up, presumably they die. But we don't know. We don't know.
But at the very least, it is now almost as if they were really in space, the final frontier.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I just thought, I want to watch that show. I like how they show future tech in Black Mirror in general as not being that different from today.
Right.
You know, in the past, whenever they're like in the future, they'd always have like weird cars and weird hairdos. And Black Mirror is so amazing because they're just like, it's basically today with like a couple extra things that you wouldn't recognize.
And they don't accumulate the changes from episode to episode, meaning they don't try to say, well, because it's n number of years in the future, everything has changed.
Right.
They usually have it focused on what the thing they're focusing on.
Right. Which is accurate because there were movies in the 80s about our time right now, and they were predicting some wildly different looking environments.
That's
you
right.
know, but if you looked at a house, you know, look out my window right now, the houses look exactly the same as they did probably like 70 years ago.
That's right.
And cars still, you know, essentially look the same. They, you know, four wheels.
But it was an interesting, understandable mistake to make, because if you look at the pictures, the very early pictures from when photography started, the way that houses and streets and cities looked was completely, fundamentally different from the 50s.
Right. So it felt like, well, obviously in 2018, everyone's going to be in a hover vehicle or something.
If the difference of 50 years between 1900 and 1950 is so dramatic, well, then 68 years.
Well, because everyone thought in terms of transportation and big materials, whereas what really is looking different from 40 years ago is electronics.
Exactly. It was a different change. I think if the focus of all society and industry had kept being on the infrastructure, we might see a lot more changes. But it wasn't the focus. You know, like they built a big highway system.
Yeah.
They built the planes. We basically have planes.
Yeah.
And we have highways.
Right. The planes look the same as they did basically in 1950 or maybe even the 40s. Like the first commercial airlines look pretty much the same as they do now.
But all the big, I mean, like 80% of the investment in the last, say, 50 years started going more and more and more towards the electronics, miniaturization, computers, internet,
which you see in these depictions in the past of the future. It's always like, you know, all those other things, hovering cars and like houses in the sky and stuff. But the electronics stuff is basically just a shade different.
Yeah, it's still a big TV with big dials.
Yeah.
But of course, how could they predict?
Right.
It's so funny. What they understood was cars, transportation systems.
Right.
So extrapolating those was easier.
Right.
It's like, well, we have planes, we have cars. What if cars could fly? Okay, that makes sense.
Right.
But to go from, well, I have this TV that for the first time in the human history, I can see images moving with sound. Oh, I could probably carry a thing on my watch. In fact, Dick Tracy did it. So
well, but even take it further in terms of like what actually we are doing today with those phones in our pocket is like we're tweeting, we're Facebooking, we're watching things from all over the world, you know.
Right. No, you're actually more correct on that front, because as I was saying it, I realized, Dick Tracy had the smartwatch.
Right.
But what they didn't have is all those applications, the uses.
We're playing, you know, Farmville and Candy Crush, and like that was not. It wasn't like. If they were truly predicting the future in 1965, they would have been like, in 2018, everyone will play video games all day long. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like that would have been, no one would have thought that, right? No one would have thought, well, you know, games are for kids.
And there were no video games in the 50s, except in 2 universities.
Right. No one's going to, why does anyone want to play a video game? Yeah. Okay. So I also thought there would be a twist at the end.
Right.
I was watching and I was like, so I wonder if Cole is actually in a game. Right. And the business is also part of the simulation. Did you think there was a...
I didn't. I thought what we were seeing was what was happening. The only thing was that I was wondering not towards the end of it, but when he first starts being mean, I was not sure if they were going to double down on him being mean. I thought they were going to make it ambiguous, like he's a little mean, but not too mean.
I didn't like that, actually. That's one of the criticisms I have is that they made him psychopathic and sadistic. Like, he was a horrible human being.
So I do have a comment on that.
But is he actually psychopathic if he's abusing ones and zeros?
So I had this debate on Facebook because someone said he didn't like this episode at all, and he thought it was very unlike Black Mirror, and he thought it was one of the worst ones. And I said, what did you think was unlike Black Mirror? He said, well, it was too clear cut. There was a very good hero to root for and a very evil bad guy to root against. But I pointed out, like, sure, if you're looking at humans, actors playing these roles, and you see like this human is being mean to this human, it does seem like he's a sadistic psychopath. But if you step back and remember what the plot is, and you compare it to today, where you have seemingly normal people like me playing a video game like Grand Theft Auto, completely psychopathically.
Well, yeah, right. So, but they didn't really lay that question out.
They didn't,
and two, even if they had, it's still, in terms of my emotions,
sure,
I really wanted this guy to fry.
Of course.
Like, I was like, that guy deserves to fry.
So it would require, unlike some of their other episodes, the nuance of the character was more obvious. Right. In this one, the nuance was not obvious until you start thinking, but wait. Now, there are things about him that were creepy anyways. Who collects DNA samples illegally and uses them for whatever purposes?
It's harmless,
Right.
But in terms of to the individual, but
that is certainly not the same as torturing or imprisoning someone, or
Right. So what I would have liked would tweak that a bit and make him a little bit more of having an internal struggle, because he seemed to almost get off on harming other people, and have it be like, have him be like, hey, guys, like, I come here, because I want to play this game, and and honestly, this requires me using a lot of resources on my computer, and if this doesn't work out,
the only option you're giving me is to like punish you somehow to force you, but I don't want to force you,
or delete you,
or delete you. Yeah,
I'll have to like start over, and I kind of like you guys, so like make it more. And then the Cole is like, well, I don't give a fuck about this guy. Like, we got to figure out a way to get out of this game, or some kind of thing around that, where it was more.
They could have portrayed them a little more selfishly or selfish, and they portrayed him a little more nuanced in that sense. I totally get you.
Yeah,
because that's true that even when I am playing Grand Theft Auto or games like that let me be bad, I am still on the border, let alone if it felt completely real.
Right.
If I was playing a game in which I go into a virtual reality thing and the people look fully real and they're begging for their lives, I'm gonna have a really hard time doing what I need to do.
Right.
Even as
because when you're playing Grand Theft Auto, those avatars, so to speak, those people in quotes, have no emotion. Like, there is not a shred of emotion involved in the making of that code. You know what I mean? Whereas in this game, it's like you created basically independent beings in a world and they have feelings and identity, and so
as an example, did you play a game called Firewatch?
No.
Okay, so it's a great indie game. I totally recommend it. It's a short game. You can play it like in 4 hours. And actually, you know what? You should play it, and we should talk about it in the podcast, because it's tons of psychological elements to it. But
when did it come out?
It came out last year and a half ago.
Oh.
And I don't know if they have it on Xbox. They have it on PS4. But if you need to borrow it, I could lend you the PS4 or whatever. But anyways, it's a really fun game, but it's short. And there's a moment, and the graphics are not hyper real. They're a little cartoonified, but still, everything looks like real, like cell shaded, sort of.
Okay.
So when you look out into he's in the forest, it looks very pretty, but it's not photorealistic. And even with that, there's this one part where you come across a body, like a dead body. And I was like, oh, I don't want to see, I don't want to see that dead body. You know, like it gave me that feeling of like, I really came across a dead body, even though it's just a game. There's no real death. So let alone something that felt.
Right.
And in this case, it's not even a VR helmet. He's sensing, he's feeling.
Right.
It's crazy.
Right.
Now,
so they made him, you know, now, does Black Mirror always have to be super nuanced?
No.
You know, it's like, you know, it's fine. They depicted a guy who was sadistic towards computer programs.
Well,
know?
and I'm gonna go and I'm gonna defend him in this, right? Which is the same thing I said on Facebook, which is that what I think the nuance they used this time was not in the way the character behaved, but it was in him, in fact, seeming on the surface to be a monster. But if we look at what actually happened, a coworker of his, solely to try to prevent some pictures being leaked, went to this person's house, broke in, took away, replaced the thing that she didn't know the effects that that thing could have, and resulted in him getting trapped in the game, potentially dying. That's what actually happened.
Right.
And all he had done was be socially awkward and steal DNA samples to humans.
Right.
So by the law, he basically, if it was illegal to steal DNA, fine, he might have broke the law there. But even if it was, that's probably a smaller offense. She might have been responsible for manslaughter, definitely breaking and entering. And all that she was trying to do is collect some pictures of her that were somewhat offensive.
Right.
And only because someone called her.
Right.
That's the reality of the episode we watched.
Right. I thought it was a funny episode. I thought there was a lot of humor in it. When Cole would transport, at first she's just like, oh my God.
The references were amazing.
Yeah, I thought the plot was pretty cool in that basically it was very Black Mirror bleak because they're trying to kill themselves.
Yeah.
And you're rooting for them. Please, go kill yourself, you know.
Well, even the ending, another thing I pointed out on the Facebook thread is that, like, well, and it has a happy ending. I'm like, wait a minute. I don't see how it has a happy ending. And even I'm just talking about for the AI protagonists, because they can be deleted at any moment just because a patch gets updated, right? Also, now they're in the actual live server. Since we've seen that they are sensitive entities that don't want to be tortured and treated like shit, they're in a multiplayer game with 80 to 90% assholes. And right off the bat, in fact, they get treated like shit.
Yeah.
So I'm not so sure they're in for fun.
Right. I mean, it's not like they can go into the world where they want to be.
No.
You know, because they feel like they come from our world.
That's right.
And they can never come back.
That's right.
know?
And yet they're going to be, if he tortured them, easily many other players are going to torture them, do whatever.
Right. Well, at the very least, when you describe the person you're arguing with on Facebook, I've said this before. If you don't like something, great. You know, art's weird. Things appeal to different people in different ways. You know, it's fine. But when I hear people criticize something in this way, I'm always like, what? Like, I feel like some people, particularly nerdy people like ourselves, people akin to you and me, they will watch things as if they're either looking for things to hate or they have such a narrow band of what is considered good.
And the world owes them their quality.
Right. And it's like they can't just sit back and enjoy themselves, you know, which is what these things are designed to do.
I'm so like that in so many respects. So I can identify it in others.
But to criticize it for having a happy ending, how is that a criticism?
His point, I think it's a he. Yeah. I think his point was it's very unlike Black Mirror.
Well, isn't Black Mirror supposed to be unlike Black Mirror? You know what I mean? Like, to create a Black Mirror episode, to be expected would be to be un-Black Mirror, you know? Anyway. Yeah. So it's like, come on. Like, when people massively, all the nerds criticized episode 8, it's just like, you know, it didn't feel like a Star Wars episode. Right. It's like, if you want to watch a Star Wars, go watch the old one. You know what I mean? The new movies are supposed to be new.
Absolutely.
You know?
I saw a great video from someone I follow on YouTube that was the 10 reasons why your reasons for hating episode 8 are wrong.
I loved how Nicole completely freaks out when she realizes that she's in a computer program.
Right.
Like, that's one of the best things about Black Mirror. When they really nail it,
Yeah.
they draw that out, where other writers and other TV shows, or maybe the producers, say, you got to get to the next, what Black Mirror does so well is like, they walk you through a legitimate reaction to a very strange scenario.
Yeah, totally.
Which always bothers me in movies and TV shows when they just skip that whole part.
Which is why the first episode we never liked.
Right.
Because they actually didn't quite do that well.
Right.
They're like, oh, I gotta fuck a pig. Well, that sucks.
Right. The only the scene where they adjust to that is the prime minister is kind of like, wait a second, what? But his staffers are like, yep.
Yep.
you're gonna have to fuck this pig. Anyway,
that's the way.
But yeah, I just love like Playtest with Kurt Russell's kid. The episode Playtest where he does the play. Yeah, the other.
I didn't know that was Kurt Russell's kid.
Yeah, Goldie Hawn, Kurt Russell's kid.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that, as he's realizing, it's really drawn out.
Maybe you pointed that out at the time. I just forgot.
San Junipero, that episode, it's like, it's really slow. Like, you really get a nosedive with with Ron Howard's kid, actually.
Yeah.
You really, they really, the whole episode is basically her nosediving on Facebook likes.
That's right.
And it's like, every time someone downvotes her, you really feel it. It's just Shut Up and Dance, the pedophile episode.
Yes. Oh God.
Like, the Black Mirror writers, they slowly walk you through it. It doesn't get to the crescendo until the end.
Yeah.
White Bear, same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, this woman wakes up. She doesn't know where she is. She's
What's
walking.
happening?
She's walking to the neighborhood. People are filming her, and it's like very, very slowly. And you really identify with the fish out of water aspect of the person. But the best one in terms of this is Be Right Back, where you have the robot boyfriend.
Yes.
And Donald Gleason. I found out you don't call his name Domhnall. It's
just Donald.
It's Donald. Yeah.
Donald.
It's because it's spelled Domhnall.
Yeah, Domhnall.
But apparently it's just
Donald.
Donald. I think, yeah, Donald Gleason.
Donald Gleason.
But that episode, she loses her boyfriend.
Right.
And very slowly she goes down the slippery slope of eventually getting the robot boyfriend.
That's right.
You know what I mean? But at first she's like, no, I'm not going to do that. She's really upset. And then she's like, okay, fine. I'm missing him. I'll try this software out.
Right.
The software kind of works. And then this robot idea comes up and she's like, well, and now we're like 30 minutes into the episode.
Which is very important for these futuristic type things, because I think a lot of people would immediately dismiss the extreme case. Like, oh, that would never happen. That's extreme. But if you walk them through, here's what you could do, then you could see how you could end up at that extreme.
So yeah, the bad things, I wish he wasn't so psychopathic. I didn't like how his eyes grayed over when he entered the game. That doesn't, I don't understand.
The sense I got, but I agree with you. It's kind of a convenience for the audience, but the sense I got is that he, in addition to the little thing in the neck, they must have contacts that they wear.
But if you have the ability to tap into all of your physical senses.
Yeah, why not just the occipital? Unless what it is that they have to occlude light coming in.
Then why not just wear it like a
glass shades or something? Yeah, I know. That's true.
And I wish it was more like Be Right Back, in that the program had to search for personality data.
Yeah, because the whole clone thing, they made it look like he can also clone their full personality and memories.
Right.
At least a lot of their memories.
That was a very poor decision by. That's like, now as I was watching the episode, I sort of let it go.
I had to, because it was one of these, like, if I get stuck on that, then this sucks.
Right. But all they had to do was have 1 second where he presses another button and says, search the web for personality data.
Yeah.
So,
or maybe he could just have filmed them. Like, that would have been neat if they had shown him putting a new camera, because the implication is like he always adds these little cameras, like little mini cameras.
But how would you know the memories, you know, the personality details?
Well, that's the part that well, yeah, you're right.
Because these people were them.
It was mostly them, right?
No, it was them.
But she was a little confused. She was like,
but she had her password. She knew those past pictures were on her phone.
True. Oh, right. No, you're right. You're right. You're absolutely right.
She had every memory.
I don't think they could have done it right then, because even with the searching online, they couldn't have done that.
Well, he could be an expert hacker or something. You know what I mean? And like, well, in the Be Right Back episode, for example, they very realistically depicted how a computer program could create a personality AI from. And it was a little janky. Like it wasn't always spot on.
And he didn't have all his own memories.
Right. Like there were things that only she knew about him that he hadn't posted.
That's why I'm saying I don't think, maybe that's why they did it this way. They went, look, in for a penny, in for a pound. We can't.
But at least throw a bone. You know, just have another button. Yeah. You know, the DNA, and plus DNA doesn't account for epigenetics and for like hairstyle. Like he didn't press any other button. It was just DNA.
What they could have done is borrow, and I know I was just saying that I like that they didn't combine too many texts into one episode, but they did have the other episodes where they everyone wears the life recorder from the time they're born.
Yeah.
They could have shown him maybe stealing or tapping into their life recorder, and then that would have explained it.
Exactly. Just some other element, you know, which would have added to the story, because it would have been like, oh, he's not just like taking their DNA, he's actually like breaking into their data unfairly. You know? Right. Anyway, let's take a break and let's get into the psychology of this episode. What do you say, Berto?
Let's do it.
All right, we're back from the break. If you haven't become a patron of the podcast, do so now. Go to patreon.com. Become a patron of the podcast, and you know that you are supporting us because you like us. It's the one time when I really know that you like us.
Because we deserve it. I just had a great thought.
Yeah.
This is how they could have solved this, and it would have been actually pretty awesome.
Okay.
The whole thing is a video game where they put a little sensor that goes right into their brain, right? Not only can it produce all the sensory information, but why can't that same sensor read their memories and their stuff like that? Okay. Now, of course, it's private, right? So a user uses it, enters the game, but the nice thing is that their character in the game is fully customized like them and stuff like that. Well, this guy, since he's the CTO, he can go and pull any number of memories and records from someone while they're in the game.
Right.
That would have been it.
Right. Yeah. It's so dumb. Like, actually, for the first couple seconds, I was like, wait a second. He created those characters from DNA? That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, anyway. Because honestly, he could have done this and not needed their DNA at all.
Right. Because the game already would, well, yeah.
But then you wouldn't have the plot of the real Cole actually breaking into the play.
Well, but I mean, stealing their personal data from the game server alone, including memories, like that's
worse.
Worse.
Like, why do I care about
stealing
my DNA?
A lollipop? Yeah. You know, that's bad. But
so the psychology of it that I could think of is that it'll be interesting to see what the future holds regarding this sort of thing. You know, because that's what Black Mirror is a lot about. It's like, we're close to this, you know? I mean, we already have people playing video games all day long.
That's right.
Which, when I was thinking about this episode, I was like, oh, in the future, you know? I was like, wait a second. We already have that.
Yeah.
There are people who play video games in their house by themselves all day long and for years. You know, we know people like this.
And many, I mean, almost an entire generation of young, mostly males, being very unempathetic inside of the game environment to both other humans and certainly to the AI.
Right. That's why I think there was a backlash from nerds who live that kind of lifestyle because it hit too close to home for them.
Yeah.
Whereas when I watched it, I'm not really that kind of gamer.
Right.
And so it didn't hurt my feelings.
Right.
You know?
Because, you know, to use the GTA analogy again, the Grand Theft Auto analogy, the first time I remember playing Grand Theft Auto, it was top down. It wasn't 3D. And it was, you have a little car, you drive it around the top-down view of London, you get out of your little car, you beat people up. And I thought it was hilarious. It was so much fun. When I got Grand Theft Auto 3, it was the first 3D version of it. And you can pull up, a hooker gets in your car, you can then beat her up. We were like, me and my friends were like, what the heck? This is crazy.
Yeah.
I remember feeling bad about it.
Right. At the time, and there was a couple other games like this too. At the time, it was like, oh no.
Right.
This is bad. Like, you can't design a game that it makes it okay. Because like most games, there was nothing like that.
When I was much younger, when I was in my early 20s, I wanted to make a video game that where you would be a serial killer. And I was thinking, oh, this would be a great thing because you could actually you would have to stalk people and get in their house and then kill. But years later, I was thinking, God, that would probably be really traumatizing to play and maybe could trigger people to do some really evil shit in real life. And
it's funny that there isn't a game like that already.
Well, I think it actually would have a lot of trouble getting approved and stuff like that.
Right.
Because in reality, as a young person,
you could play Grand Theft Auto that way if you wanted to.
Yeah, but it's still, like you were saying, there's still a cartoony element to it.
Yeah.
But with the technology we have now, especially with VR, you can make experiences where you are essentially, it feels like you're killing someone.
Totally.
And as a younger person, I thought, oh, I know the difference between reality and fiction. I'm sure I'd be fine. Now, as an older person, I'm realizing, oh, A, I wouldn't be fine. I know a lot of people that really wouldn't be fine.
Right.
So this is getting to be more and more of an issue.
Totally. Yeah. So this game or this episode kind of alerts to what's possible. Now, I would contend, based on my understanding of experts regarding technology and brain interfaces and all this kind of stuff, that this exact kind of thing is like well beyond the time that we're dead. The ability to create a virtual in-brain experience where you feel you're in that world. Every cell in your body is interacting with the thing, and the ability to create like an entire human being, even if you did have all the data and all the memories and everything.
And it seemed non-invasive. It was just this little thing he attached to his temple.
But even if it was invasive, honestly, like the brain is a gelatinous wet mess.
Yeah.
And it is, to connect all of that gelatinous wet mess up to a computer. I think in the future, one of the only, or at least an interim way that this will happen is with a cyborg brain, where part of your brain is actually made out of hardware, out of computer hardware. And so part of your consciousness is therefore ones and zeros, and therefore you can much more easily manipulate it through ones and zeros, if that makes sense. To translate ones and zeros into cellular neuronal experiences is I just can't see that happening in our
life. And you sort of don't have to, in that, look, making you think you're seeing something that you're not seeing is already possible.
Right, with VR. Yeah.
And it'll only get better and better and better, right?
Right. So in our lifetime, and I'm hoping actually, like in 20 years, 25, 30 years, there will be VR headsets that will be as light as sunglasses, and headphones. So you get full stereo, 3D, 360 spatial audio. Which you do now.
That fully fools your ears, right?
Yeah.
In addition, you could produce little molecules to give you some sense of smell, right? Certain smells, right? You could do it. You
could have gloves on.
You could have haptic feedback. You could also do, with electro impulses, you could start doing things like maybe stimulate your your falling response, your what is that called? Your what makes it feel when you're falling or when you're whatever. And you could certainly imagine tricking you into feeling electricity or shocks or pain even and stuff like that.
That would be pretty. Or you create a like a pod that moves. You know what I mean?
So there's any number of things that you can do to approximate it. Will it be perfect anytime soon? No, definitely not.
But I have had VR experiences with Vive, for example, that I am like, holy crap. Like I can see it's computer because it doesn't look, but man, the emotional experience.
And that's why I'm saying, imagine just with today's Vive Oculus technology.
Right.
You're wearing the thing, you're holding the controllers, and you see a photorealistic human talking to you. And it's like, and then there's another guy, punch her, and you're punching.
Yeah.
And the graphics are good, so she starts bleeding, and she's begging, stop.
But, and I think you and I differ in this, in our lifetime, I don't think we're going to see AI on the level of an actual person that we would of course there's a philosophical gray zone here.
No, and I know we disagree, but I'm not even talking about, let's all assume that we are all aware that this is just a program.
Yeah.
And it's not self-aware.
That'll happen in our lifetime.
And in fact, we could design this game today.
Right.
But what I'm trying to get at is, what's the impact that has on the person, the human?
Yeah. Well, I think we have a good approximation for it now in that we forget how realistic video games are now, even non-VR games.
Yeah.
Because, like, you and I play video games and they're like a racing game or a flying game or something. Like, even though it's on a little square video screen, like you get into it, you're into it, you know, like you start moving your body around, or you when something happens that scares you, you jump back, you know. It's like, just because it's a flat screen doesn't mean it doesn't feel real. And so there's plenty of people who are walking around Grand Theft Auto and punching people and running people over and shooting them in the head. And the research has shown that for the vast majority of people, even young people, they understand that is not a real person. And that doesn't translate into sadistic behavior in real life.
And what I'm wondering is,
will VR make it worse?
Well, if they did that research with something this, as what I was describing, in that level of realism, does that actually start? Because, in war, you're there and you're killing the person, and that might traumatize you.
Well, so that's a good example. So when people would go to war, some people would absolutely be traumatized, but there would be people who would kill and see the whites of the eyes of hundreds of the enemy.
Yeah.
They would shoot them in the head. They'd blow off their legs. They'd, just annihilating people. Now they might be traumatized by that, but they come back to the States and they don't start killing a bunch of, like, I see. You know what I mean? We're very good at categorizing things, you know what I mean? So there's more to that than what I'm talking, because there are some people who actually create atrocities later on, like the Robert Bales story from anyway. So I want to move on to Star Trek references. So there were many, and I'm going to list them off, and you tell me if I missed any. So obviously the ship and the look and the sounds and the filter, as you said. Uhura, you had the Uhura character with the thing in her ear. You have someone with a bad Russian accent, the woman with blue hair. I like the line, just hit any button, it doesn't matter. Captain Kirk kissing all the women.
Yeah.
The short skirts, going through the ion cloud. That was the first episode, the first bit. Or was that, anyway, they go through and they go into some kind of cloud, and several Star Trek episodes and movies are about entering some kind of cloud to escape certain death outside of the. It's like, we can't go into the cloud. We'll die in there. Well, we'll certainly die out here, Captain. As I said, Jesse Plemons plays a really good version of Kirk. His hair even looks.
Can they, by the way, make a note of that for future crews and like, hey, you don't die in the cloud.
Yeah, it's one of the best strategies of all time. Have you not seen the Star Trek show? When they emerge from Daly's computer world into the World Wide Web world, did you notice it became a J.J. Abrams version of Star Trek? Oh, you didn't notice?
Right. No, yes, because it was like modernized.
Well, no, it looked exactly like J.J. Abrams reboot Star Trek
Okay.
with lens flares
Okay.
and the white and blue sort of
You're right.
themes.
You're right,
Yeah, it looked. I was like, oh my god.
So the main server doesn't look like the 60s version.
Right. So Daly's server is the 60s.
Because he's going for nostalgia.
They go out into the other world, and it's the J.J. Abrams
Right.
world. Yeah, and it was so subtle, and you didn't even pick up on it. And I was like, oh my god, brilliant. They didn't have to do it that way, but
Well, no, I saw that the look changed, but I didn't realize they were so specific about making it look like J.J. Abrams.
yeah. Someone had to sacrifice themselves to save every,
And they had Khan.
Yeah. Away missions, going to like a lot of desert. When Star Trek went on a lot of away missions, it was a lot of deserts.
Because California.
Right. Because outside of LA, it's a lot of desert.
They couldn't go to the lush jungles of the Amazon unless it was a stage.
Or a forest or something. But there was a Battlestar Galactica reference. Did you catch it?
No.
It was when they're like, for he's a jolly good fellow, and then the McPoyle says, so say we all.
Oh, I didn't catch it. Damn.
All right. Any other? Did I miss anything?
Oh, I'm sure you did, but you know so many more references than I do. That
are you not a huge
Trek.
old Trek person?
Old Trek, period.
Oh, okay.
I never watched any of the other Treks.
Oh, you didn't watch Next Generation?
I mean, I've seen like 2 episodes or something.
Yeah. Man,
I've seen the movies, not all the movies. I've seen the new movies. I've seen 2 of the
You haven't seen all the movies?
I never saw The Wrath of Khan.
Oh my god.
I know, right? I never saw the first one.
Oh my
I
god.
saw Star Trek The Search for Spock.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, no. Did I see The Search for Spock? I saw The Undiscovered Country.
Okay.
I saw The Final Solution or The Final Frontier, I mean.
Yeah.
No. What was it called?
5.
Yeah.
Terrible. They find God.
Right. And then I saw Generations.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah. And then I saw the new ones.
Yeah, I've seen all the movies. I'm a 95% Trekkie. I watched as a kid rerun the old episodes. Watched Next Generation religiously. Me and my college friends would make a date of it. It's like I think it was like Sunday night. I think, and it was like, oh, Next Generation's on. We're gonna watch it, or Monday night. Anyway,
but I also loved that scene was so iconic of them in the little desert planet with the red filter and the antagonist up on the hill yelling down at them. Like, it's just such a
yeah.
It rings true, It's like, yep, that's Star Trek.
I watched Deep Space Nine actually after it had finished. I think I watched reruns in the mid 90s. I think it was. Wait, no, mid or around the year 2000. I think Deep Space Nine had ended all of the season. Anyway, every night they would play another episode of Deep Space Nine at like 10 o'clock on Channel 13, and I would watch it over dog ear antenna on my 13-inch color TV, and I would eat Doritos, and I would. So I watched all of Deep Space Nine, and that became my favorite Star Trek show.
Oh,
actually,
interesting.
It's sort of a soap opera, and it was the first Star Trek series where they had storylines that spanned across different seasons. You know what I mean? So whereas Next Generation, they might have had 2 or 3 episodes that had a theme,
and they had characters that would reoccur and stuff.
Right,
like that.
but each mainly Star Trek, old Star Trek, and then Next Generation. Each episode is its own deal. And Deep Space Nine, the characters and the storylines, I don't know. I just really like that thing. And then I tried to watch Voyager and kind of liked it, but then got bored. And then Enterprise, I was so excited for Enterprise and quickly hated that. I liked the first episode, but then after that I was like, oh.
So one of the things that I didn't like about The Next Generation when I tried watching it in high school, or that I guess just turned me off a bit. When I watched the original, the 60s Star Trek on TV in Columbia, the sounds, the imagery, everything felt, as soon as the show would start, it felt like I was in a completely different time and space. It gave me this feeling like we've entered a little bubble. They care nothing about what's going on in the world right now here. They know nothing about it. This really is the future. I'm watching something in the future. And it's just because it had these little sounds and pings. And there was a sense of a lack of urgency until an emergency would happen. That was sort of like interesting. Like, okay, here we are. It's hard to describe, but everything about it felt legitimately alien.
Interesting. I don't think I've ever felt what you're making me feel right now, which is, I think it was sort of like a submarine.
Yes. It's like the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, or that other show, Sequest or whatever.
Whereas Next Generation felt like a living room.
Next Generation felt like a 90s, like Friends set. And it was very bright.
Yeah.
And everyone was there. And so
it didn't feel like a submarine anymore.
I didn't feel like I was trapped in a different dimension at all.
Yeah.
And so as a result, it was way less immersive.
That's funny. All right, so let's talk about episode 2, season 4, Archangel, directed by, do you know who?
No.
Jodie Foster.
Oh, Jodie Foster. I did, because at the end they say directed by Jodie Foster. Yes.
Yeah, she's a long career.
Yes.
Notably, Taxi Driver, Bugsy Malone, Freaky Friday, The Accused, in which she got an Oscar. Silence of the Lambs, she got another Oscar.
She was in Freaky Friday?
Like the original 70s Freaky Friday. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Nell, Contact, Inside Man, The Beaver, which she also directed, and most recently Elysium. This episode is written by Charlie Brooker, the creator of Black Mirror, brilliant guy. Stars Rosemarie DeWitt as the mother. She's been in a lot, but I don't recognize her. Did you recognize the mom at all?
The mom, she looked familiar, yes, but I don't remember where I've seen her.
Yeah, she's been in a number of, not a lot of things, but some things, and I was like, huh. And then Brianna Harding as the kid. She's also been in some stuff, but I didn't recognize her either. Okay, so the plot is that you have a single mom and daughter. We don't really know what happened to the dad. The daughter wanders off one day at the playground. Mom is terrified. They find her. She's sort of traumatized that she thought her mom, and I thought that's where they were going with this story, was like, oh, the kid got abducted and got killed or something. Yeah. But, she just wandered off, and they ended up finding. And the mom...
Well, and I thought there was something odd about the kid. They made it look like there was something odd about the kid.
Oh, really?
But there wasn't.
No.
Well, in that moment, like... The way I thought they were going is like, oh, there's something about this girl.
Like she has special power.
She disappeared or something. Like, but no, there was nothing.
Yeah. That's when you watch Black Mirror, especially the first 10 minutes, you everything is in question.
Right. What's this?
Maybe I'm in a simulation. The mom is convinced to put a new device in the daughter's head. It's a tracking device. It also sees what she sees. So it records what she sees, which is interesting. You didn't find that out till later. And it can block bad things. So you kind of have to watch the episode to understand what I mean by that. But if you've seen
if you've seen the one with the Christmas special where you could block people and then they become blurs,
right? It's
a less aggressive version of that where everything becomes blocky and pixelated.
If it's distressing,
yeah. If you're experiencing stress while watching it, right. And if the setting is on,
right. And so after this, things are good, and then the father dies, and at this point, the mother is like truly isolated. And I think
the grandpa.
The grandpa died, sorry. Yeah, well, the father of the mother.
Oh, yeah.
And I was trying to figure out why they even had his character, and I think it's because they wanted the mother to have at least some voice of reason, and then to have that voice go away. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or a voice of support or a voice of stability or something. And then when he dies, you get the sense like the mom is truly by herself now. Yeah. She's a working mom. She doesn't have a lot of time for friends, and she's.
But isn't that also the inciting? Isn't that the inciting event that causes her to realize that she should turn off the filter?
Well, that's one of them, kind of. But then
I don't remember the sequence.
Well, the daughter starts having some issues, like she can't see the mother crying at the grave of the grandfather. She's being ostracized by her friends at school because they don't have the parental controls that she has.
She's drawing some very
and so she starts to become kind of fascinated with blood, and because she's like, how come this is interesting. Whenever blood or red stuff comes out of people's bodies,
she starts cutting herself.
Well, she starts stabbing herself. So this is reminiscent of issues that parents are paranoid about today. And so it seems like she's too protected. She goes to a psychologist. The psychologist says, these implants have been banned all over the world, actually, and they don't really explain why, which I thought was good, because they could have thrown out a reason, like it turns them all into psychopaths, but they just sort of leave it as a question. It's like they've been banned, and the psychologist says, you know what, you might want to just turn that thing off.
You can't remove it, but you can turn it off.
Yeah, you might just want to like get rid of that monitor, So the mom puts away the iPad thing. The daughter starts to develop normally. She's fine. And the mom isn't looking at the iPad thing.
Right.
The daughter grows up into teenage life, starts to rebel. The daughter lies and says she's with a friend, but she's really at the beach smoking pot with friends, particularly this boy called Trick. And the mother is scared. She's like, where was she? It's a classic story where it's like, everyone tells their parents that they're staying at everyone else's house. And then when the parents actually start asking around, they say, well, they said they were going to your house. Well, they said they're going to your. And so she's like, she gets worried. And so she goes to the iPad years later after putting it in the attic to see like, well, where was my daughter?
Right.
And she finds out that her daughter was having sex. And the daughter is actually talking dirty, which is distressing to the mom naturally, right? It's like she's like saying something like, "Do me harder" or something, And the mother is basically traumatized by watching her daughter have sex, from her daughter's perspective, which is interesting. And then the mother starts getting kind of worried because now she's like, okay, my daughter's lying to me. My daughter's having sex with this random guy, and she starts watching more. And then she sees that her daughter is using cocaine. And so the mom really loses it at this point, goes to Trick, the boyfriend, threatens him and says, if you don't cut it off with my daughter, I'm gonna fry you. And so he's scared, he's terrified. And so he breaks up with the daughter. And then the daughter's sad. And then the mom gets and this was subtle. I had to rewatch this scene to figure out what happened because I didn't really pick up on. But the mom gets a notification. We don't see it, but basically she gets a notification because this device also measures hormones and stuff.
Right.
And the device had figured out she was pregnant. And so the mom gets this notification that her daughter is pregnant, but the daughter doesn't know she's pregnant.
Right.
And so the mom secretly drugs the daughter to have an abortion, and via this drug, and the daughter has an abortion and then goes to the doctor, and the doctor runs some tests and says, you were pregnant and you had this drug.
Yeah.
And she's like, the daughter's like, wait a second, like I was pregnant and I was using this drug. I know I didn't. And then she slowly starts to, and then you see her face, and this is the brilliant of Black Mirror. It's like, you can see in her face, and they really focus on it for a while, that she is slowly piecing it together. She's like, well, why would I have this anti-pregnancy drug in me?
Yeah. Like you were saying, in other shows or movies, they would cut sooner, and then all of a sudden she's at home uncovering the garbage can.
Well, no. Well, yes. But another sort of even lazier way is she would have a friend that she'd be talking to where they would verbalize what's in her head. She'd be like, I don't understand it. I had this. So you'd have some sort of wise friend, and you'd be in the bathroom, and she'd be like, I don't understand it. The nurse said I had this weird drug in me. And, the daughter is like, well, maybe your mom drugged you. And no, well, I don't know. Wait, what do you, they'd verbalize the whole, but in this brilliance of Black Mirror, it's just like, the music is sort of swelling, and they're sort of zooming in on her face, and you see the actor's face kind of start from confusion and like shock to like anger and resolve, and then the daughter confronts the mom. They get into a physical fight. The daughter brutally beats the mom with the tablet.
With the pad. With the iPad.
I think the writers are suggesting that she's prone to violence because she had those parental controls early in life,
Yeah.
And the daughter runs away. The mother...
Well, we've talked about this now several times. If it is true that you can develop psychopathy or trigger it or whatever because you never learned fear, and this thing blocked fear.
Yeah. Right. Well, so let's get into that after I summarize. The daughter runs away. The mother is left alone and calling out for the daughter in vain. And the last scene, you see the daughter hitchhiking, and she gets into some random
truck,
random semi truck,
which again is another very common parent fear.
Right? Yeah, it's like it plays like exactly like the worst case scenario that you would worry about, and it ends with a Pretender song. I am a mother. Right. I'm a mother. So the psychology about this is like, first, what out of 10 would you give this episode?
So I got to be honest that although I liked a lot of the aspects and it definitely was stressful, the contrivance of the device itself and what you could and could not do with it and how she chose to use it, I just felt, I was like, come on, you could have easily prevented all of this. But so as a result, for me, I was a 6.
Okay, let's take a break. When we get back, I'll give my rating. All right, we're back from the break. Black Mirror, Season 4, Episode 2, Archangel. I would give it an 8. I was fully in on this story. I loved that it was down to earth.
Yeah.
I loved that it was very familiar, actually, to today's parents, because today you can, if early in life, if you can figure out a way, especially if you're good with tech stuff, that you could actually spy on your kids in a certain way, even up through adolescence.
Yeah.
You make sure you're the first person with the phone or the iPad, and you install an app that is protected from view from the user, and then you could absolutely spy on your kids. You could get their passwords.
You can log everything.
Yeah, you could.
You can put cameras in their room. You could put Bluetooth or even wireless things on their clothing. Right. Whatever.
There are plenty of parents today opting to give their kids cell phones so that they can track their movement. Yeah. There's a lot of parents today who, at any point in time, they can pull out their own phone and find out exactly the GPS of their own child.
And there are services that you can pay for where they actually do the thing where they have little cameras and you can see what your child is seeing.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. So this is now, I mean, not the parental control part where it blocks something out.
And it's inserted into their blood.
Right. But the ability to track, the ability to spy on your kids, the ability to secretly spy on your kids, it has been happening for like 5 or 10 years.
Which is, by the way, part of why my main problem with this episode, and I agree, look, the acting was phenomenal. The stress was true and real. And that feeling of like, parents and their struggle of how much should I control, how much, I get all that. The problem I had was this. As you're pointing out, there's a lot of ways in which parents today could richly spy and go well into the privacy of their sons and daughters. Most choose not to.
Right.
Now,
or they're just lazy.
Or they're lazy. That's number one. Number two,
not lazy in a bad way, but it's
still a lot of effort.
It's a lot of effort.
But I thought, here's what I was thinking. Look, do you want to install something on your little toddler, and for the first maybe 5 years, you're gonna have the ability to see what they're seeing? Maybe I'm ridiculous, but I feel like that might be reasonable because little toddler is liable to go and eat a thing and choke in any minute, right? But there's got to be a point at which if the thing doesn't come with a disable switch or a way to remove it, that's already a red flag. But you as a responsible parent have to be able to recognize, look, there's an age past which I can never use this again. And if you don't, then it's fully on you as because like you're saying, it's like a parent today installing a video camera in their teenager's room in secret and spying on them. Right. That's really invasive and bad parenting.
Well, but I think we're headed in that direction.
Yeah.
It's already basically here. I mean, you have baby monitors, or you have people have secret cameras to watch the babysitters.
Yeah.
To make sure the babysitters aren't abusing their kids. And it's a slippery slope because it's like, well, sure, you know, like for example, as what's laid out in this episode, I think so well, wouldn't every parent want a GPS permanently on their child?
Yeah, GPS until the age of, you know, whatever, 18 or something. Yeah.
Well, okay, so 18, you know.
Yeah.
But this is she's like 16 or 17 but at the end of this episode.
But I think it's the body and camera where it transgresses, I think.
Right. But again, so wouldn't you want a GPS for? Wouldn't any parent want a GPS for their minor child?
Yes.
Yeah. Wouldn't any parent want to see what their children are seeing up to a certain age, like say 12 or something?
I would go younger, but sure.
Okay. Yeah. So any parent would be like, yes, if you could easily make it so that I could see what my 3-year-old is looking at. Or 7-year-old isn't looking at porn at school. Right. Yes, I want to see that. Or they're being bullied or something. I mean, the amount of things that you would want. So everyone would be like, yeah, sign me up for that.
But the blurring part?
But the blurring part is like, and I bet you a lot of parents would sign up for that too.
Well, I guess with porn.
Do I want my kid
and violence?
Right. Do I want my kid to see violence? No. I mean, we do this anyway, right? Most good all good parents already edit what their kids can see. They don't show them rated R movies. They don't show them porn.
But clearly it was extreme. Okay, first of all, as you're talking, I'm realizing that I am being unfair to the episode because what I'm reacting to is
you're seeing it as an adolescent. You're not seeing it as a parent.
Yes. Okay, that is fair. Now, at the same time, I guess maybe if I was only going to pick one thing that bothered me the most was the degree to which things got blurred. Like a dog barking, really?
Well, same. You know, parents, if they were around, when you're around your own child and there is a dog, they should have made the dog more vicious maybe.
Well, but even if they did that, like first of all, you need to hear and see because otherwise how are you going to get away?
Right. Well, that's why this thing was banned, you know, and that's, I think, the point that they're making in this episode is that it's an innocent desire to shield your child from distressing things. Every parent does that. They should do that. Right. But taken to an extreme, it might actually screw a kid up because they aren't given a chance to interface with fear and with the normal situations in life.
You know how you were saying in the previous episode that you wished that the guy had been a little more, not quite as a psychopath, as big of...
Yeah.
I guess my wish would have been that they would have made the impact of the blurring more subtle. Okay. Because I think most reasonable people would realize, wait a minute, you can't... If the 13-year-old is walking down the street and they don't hear and see the bus coming because it might cause them stress... That's ridiculous.
Right.
So you need to have it more. So what I would have preferred if I were tweaking the episode was show me examples that totally make sense for blurring. Like, oh, the porn. She didn't see the porn. Oh, she was watching a violent movie on TV and she couldn't see.
Well, I think that was their point was like, this is an ill-gotten thing. You know, this isn't well thought out. It's sort of like, if they made it more, you know.
But I'm saying like that things are better thought out today. Like porn filters exist on the internet. You have adult settings. Right. You have all those things.
Right. So
why would in the future it be so poorly thought out?
Well, because it was rudimentary science in a device, and the way it was explained was if she has a stress reaction, it blocks what is causing her stress, and when you're 3 years old, which is 3 or 4 is how old she was when she had the device, that kind of makes sense. You don't want a 3-year-old seeing distressful things. You're not trying to teach a 3-year-old the scary things of the world.
I mean, but
now to an 8-year-old, to a 15-year-old, it's a different sort of thing. A 3-year-old isn't expected to jump out of the way of a bus, for example.
That's fair, but you know, obviously, don't need to tell you that a 3-year-old does and needs to experience stress constantly. It's just that the things that trigger her stress or his stress are what we would call completely mundane, like the toy was moved out of position and she's now in stress.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't really explain that very well because it's just like, well, kids experience stress when they're told they have to take a nap.
Yes.
You know.
So that's what. Look, what I'm saying is this. You're convincing me that this is a better episode than I thought. At the same time, I wish, like we wish some things in the other one, I wish that they would have been more subtle with the design of this thing.
Sure.
It was like too obviously problematic.
Okay. Well, not to me actually. I was watching it thinking that a lot of people would have that reaction.
Okay.
It was just like, oh, this is no. But I'm like, wait a second, people.
Okay.
In my head, I was arguing already with people. I was like, wait a second, people. Like, if this was available and it was free, especially as a trial, they're studying it. I would guess at least 50% of parents would say, yeah, sign me up for my 3-year-old to have GPS, what they see. Parents are already helicoptering their kids.
Sure.
So, it is a natural progression from what we are already doing with tech. Do you know what I mean? And it completely ties into good parenting. You should know what your 5-year-old is seeing. You should know where your and with the way our society is today, and here's my big point, is that 100 years ago, every parent didn't need this because you were within eyesight of your child 24/7 from day one until they got married and moved out of your house, or 300 years ago on the farm.
Yeah.
You knew exactly where your kid was. You knew exactly what they looked at. You knew for the most part.
Yeah, the risks were like, what did you eat? Or you're choking on a piece of meat, or you fell off the top of the barn.
But you were there.
You were there. Yeah.
You were there. Like you were, especially when they're, 0 to 7.
You certainly didn't have to wonder, do you know where your child is?
You wouldn't need a GPS. Right. You wouldn't need to protect them from porn or R-rated movies or the weird kid on the playground because there were no such things and you were right there. And so this device is in a way returning to a natural state of parenting, which is my big point, which is like when I realized that I blew my own mind.
Yeah.
Because I was like, not only is this not sick, not only is this not bad parenting, but in a sense, given the way our society is today, where, the average parent is, we put our kids in another room to sleep. We didn't used to do that. We had one room where everyone slept in the family, one cave or one area. Right. And so we are so separated from everyone, including our kids, because of the way our society is. They go to school, they go to daycare, they go to dancing class, they go to this. And that is not natural. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad way to parent, and I'm not saying it's bad for kids, but I'm saying that it's natural for a parent to want full monitoring of their children, and to say that is a bad thing is to say that 99.999% of our history was filled with bad parenting, which I don't believe.
So I'm like I said, I think it's perfectly reasonable to say, hey, I want to track location. I even want to have vitals, see what I see. But like all things, there needs to start being limits based on the age and the development. And the blurring part in particular, I guess they would have had to check with some psychologists, and you would have thought any one of them would have said, well, you can't just blur stress. That's not going to work. Let me just start from that, right?
Who listens to psychologists?
What did you just say?
Yeah. People, if people listen to psychologists and child development experts, the world would be a vastly different place. So the fact that this episode they weren't listening to experts is not surprising to me. The other thing is they had the whole thing where this thing was banned. So it's not so.
Sure.
It's very possible. So they basically said, this is a bad device, and society has decided this is bad.
Didn't she ever get any follow-up from the people doing the device? Wasn't she part of a test?
They didn't depict that, but they must have, right? Because it was like a trial.
I don't know why I'm so, like, yes.
Well, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
As far as Black Mirror goes, this episode is like really real. Like it doesn't have any real fantastical nature to it. You know, there's in a sense you could almost just say there's no sci-fi. It's just like some device that could be around.
There's a little bit of sci-fi, but yes.
But you know, it's like
you're not cloning a full personality.
It's depressing.
Out of DNA.
It's a depressing, realistic, sad situation of a relationship between daughter and mother. You know what I mean?
Yes.
There's no guns. There's no.
Especially because in the grand scheme of things, she wasn't actually lost. She wasn't getting raped. She wasn't getting murdered. The worst that happened is she tried a drug.
Yeah, it was her, and she begged to use that drug. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it was.
So I do get all that, and they from the very first scene they showed us, hey, this mother is very worried about what might happen to her child. Like, remember, she's giving birth, and she's like, is the baby alive? You know, she's already thinking the worst.
Which is normal. I mean,
yeah, but I mean, some people are worse. Like, look, as we've talked, I'm a hypochondriac, right? So I can imagine being worried about every little thing and stuff. So they set her up correctly to say, all right, just know this person is very worried. And then the daughter disappears at the park.
Well, I disagree. I disagree. The scene where she's giving birth, the baby comes out and she asks, is the baby okay? And everyone ignores her. So up to that point, everyone's sort of communicating, like, we're doing this, we're doing that. Mm-hmm. And then they're like, oh, the baby's out. And she's like, yay, how's the baby? They're like, you know, they're silent, and they take the baby away, and it looks like something's wrong. Like the baby's not breathing or something. And so she starts to freak out, just like any normal person.
Something was wrong, right? Like they did something.
Right. So it looked, I mean, we don't know, but it looked like there was actually something wrong.
Yeah, that's true.
And then at the park, her 3-year-old, 2-year-old child disappears for what seemingly was like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Where else could she be? You know what I mean? And there were people looking, there were like others, you know, that's going to panic any parent.
Yeah.
So I would contend that she is right down the middle. You know what I mean?
You've sold me. I guess then I'm going to limit. My only issue is with how little thought went into the blurring.
Well,
by the people creating the device.
But mostly it just didn't resonate with you. It didn't get you. This episode got me.
No. I was very much like, I really felt that when the child went missing, I was like, oh my God, that's horrible, right? When she is legitimately, you know, I remember in high school when I did not understand why my mom, quote unquote, so overreacted when I didn't come home one night. And I'm like, what? I stayed over at Ron's house. And she's like, you never called me. Like, and I didn't get it.
Yeah.
Like, well, you knew I was going to Ron's house.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
But like now as an adult, I'm like, oh my God, like you're a teenager, doesn't come home one night.
So imagine that happens, and then you're like, oh, you know, I could probably find out where she is if I busted out that thing. And then you discover that she was having sex and that she was using cocaine.
Right.
With this guy.
Right. So all that is fine. I was fine with all that. I thought it was a little predictable, but fine. Like it was predictable in that, like,
it was predictable, but I felt like they laid it out in a very even-handed, realistic manner. Like even the boyfriend,
yes,
he'd be an easy person to make into like a horrible.
But he wasn't. He was.
But
he sold drugs, which is not great.
But a good kid, you know, cared. Was like, no, I'm not going to give you cocaine. You know what I mean?
So I am fine with all that. So that's why I'm saying, like, I'm limiting my complaints now to just, I think whoever designed this thing didn't put 2 minutes of thought into the blurring.
Yeah. Well, to me, I after the episode was over, I was like, the word that came to mind was devastating. I was just like, that was devastating and so real. I mean, maybe it's because as a family therapist, I've worked with thousands of parents in this situation.
But by the way, like part of the reason I'm focusing on the blurring aspect is because you're calling it devastating. I'm agreeing with you. But why was it devastating?
Because
sorry.
Good intentions led it to a horrible result.
But the horrible result, I mean, would that child have nearly murdered her mother stabbed herself, all these things
without the parental control.
without the blurring.
Well, I think part of their point is maybe not, but I think for me, as I was watching it, the blurring was a kind of minor aspect of the whole thing. Could I imagine this whole story playing out without any of the blurring? Yeah, because imagine no blurring happens in the story,
right?
And that you're a 16-year-old, 17-year-old kid, and you discover that your mother has drugged you to abort a child.
Wait, back up. There's no blurring, right?
Yeah.
So because there's no blurring, first of all, she's not drawing blood and obsessed by blood, number one.
Great.
Number two,
Fine.
She's not stabbing herself.
Fine.
Number three, she's not obsessed about things she can't see that some kid is trying to show her, right?
Okay.
Because she can't see it. She's okay.
But she might have been fascinated with it anyway.
Well, like all kids, right? But those, at least those two of those wouldn't have happened. Right?
Sure.
Okay. So now we fast forward. If the mom continues to spy on her continuously, we are back to having a full problem. Right. But if the mom would have since you're pointing out that she seems fairly normal, she would have probably put that device away anyways, at least from the spying perspective, because she would have been like, look, I can't be spying on my 12-year-old, whatever, right?
Exactly.
And so the only thing that could have still happened is, okay, she goes missing. And the mom, after not having used the device for years, is like, shit. And she looks at it. She sees her having sex.
Right.
She might also be trying drugs, and she freaks out. She goes, talks to the boyfriend, never see him again, and stuff like that.
Right.
The girl gets super upset. And for the next several months to a year, their relationship is really difficult.
I think it's credible that there could have been a minor altercation, maybe not to the degree that we saw in this version, but definitely running away. I mean, imagine you're 17 years old and you discover that your mother has been secretly spying on everything you've ever done and drugged you to have an abortion and made your boyfriend break up with you, which was devastating to you. That's going to be upsetting. Kids have run away from home for less than that. So maybe not an altercation. And honestly, the violence I kind of felt was a little heavy-handed. I was like, yikes. Like,
when the drugging her to have an abortion, that was an extreme reaction from a parent.
Right. But
so there's something wrong with both of them, even in spite of having that device. Like, even if you take the device away, well, I don't know about the girl, but the mom.
So the mom, again, just you gotta micro the decision making. You can't look at the broad picture. So you're a mom, and you just realized that your kid has been impregnated by what you perceive as this drug dealer asshole. You know, this like terrible, terrible human being. You know that your daughter does not want to have a kid. You know that. And you also surmise that if your kid found out she was pregnant, she would probably have an abortion. You know what I mean? You can imagine a parent kind of walking themselves through that. I mean, particularly if they had like other conversations or something.
Well, but this could have been a after-school special with no technology, where the mom finds out that she finds a condom, she sees that it's broken, she sees the cocaine, and she still drugs the child without her knowledge. And it could have had nothing to do with the technology. Right. Which I think is not usually... So the Black Mirror stuff usually does have a direct correlation to the technology.
Which it does, you know, like, how would a parent find out definitively that their child was pregnant before the kid knew they were pregnant? You know what I mean? Anyway, the point is like the micro decision. Now, to me, that decision felt consistent with the character and with, I think, at least an impulse from a lot of parents, you know? To you, it felt like it wasn't. I don't know. Anyway.
Well, I mean, I'm picking on it, trying to defend my stance that there was something about it that I didn't like. And like I said, I think I boiled it down to the thing that I most didn't like was the rationale behind the blurring. You feel that one is more of a minor issue. To me, it feels more major. But in the end, I see your point, and I see how... And I actually did enjoy a lot of the episode. So... I might bump it up to a 7.
And I defend this episode because it's not flashy like the USS Callister.
That's true.
You know, this episode had everything going wrong for it. You know, it's not going to appeal to nerds. It's about parenting.
Right.
It has 2 women in it. you know,
Yeah,
mother daughter.
SJW is ruining Black Mirror.
Right. It's like there's no like murder or anything, you know,
Right.
and it's like it had everything going against it, and I thought they, you know, I loved that Brooker actually said, you know what, we're gonna tell a small story here,
Yeah.
a realistic sort of normal story about a very normal anxiety and teenage development issue, you know. Things I didn't like about the episode were, I didn't like how nonchalant the mom was about putting the tech in the kid's brain.
Yeah, that was pretty, went from zero to hero.
Yeah, it was like she's just sort of walking back, and then this tech just goes bump, you know, and it's like, I would have liked there a little bit more in there of the like what I would have inserted in terms of the writing was, and this would have perhaps broken the pace, but they introduce her to it, and she's like, nah, I think I'll pass, and then some other event happens, you know,
Or like you said with the one about the robot one, the recreation of Donald Gleason or whatever, is that you could have done it so that she first goes and gets the GPS plus vitals.
Oh, okay.
And then they upsell her later because, you know, she's like, oh, but I could get the
right,
you know, that kind of thing.
Just GPS, like
Yeah.
just GPS, and then something else happens, and she's like, well, I got to see what she could, maybe, but it felt like, whoa, like not a lot of parents would be like, yeah, random person
inject my child
in the brain, you know what I mean? Yeah. Also, another problem I had with it pretty quickly was, why would there only be one way to monitor that device? You know, there's one iPad.
Yeah.
Like what happens if that iPad breaks
Right.
or you lose that? I mean, you know, most things today can be accessed with any computer device, including your phone.
That's
you know
right.
what I mean? So it's like, why would anyway, but you needed that for the plot to make sense, because if she could access it from any device, then blah, blah. But anyway,
Well, I thought, by the way, what I thought they were going to do is they were going to show the daughter like ripping out. Like I guess it wouldn't have made sense because they didn't show us what the thing was. But I was kind of feeling like the daughter was going to try to kill herself or try to remove whatever was in her
and die.
Yeah, because otherwise I was like, yeah, how is she not going to track her? But they basically solved it by the way that you're complaining about.
I also didn't like in this episode, as well as many other Black Mirror episodes, in which there's a perfect optic feed that you can get from a brain interface. Like that is not a like GPS, absolutely. Even cortisol levels, sure. Iron blood levels from an implant, sure. But the ability to perfectly recreate as if it was a video camera mounted on the kid's head.
Well, I think what they're going for is they are, well, it could just be sloppy, and that's probably what it is. But if I were going to explain it in retrospect, I would say, well, no. They're not just getting the optical feed. They're actually, first of all, getting the post-processed knowledge of the scene and then running it through a translation layer that re-renders it out photorealistically.
Right. Well,
to be what our inner brain sees.
Which it would have to be. I mean, you can't just... You know, our brain isn't organized like a pixelated picture. That would have to be there, but it's still exactly what the person is seeing.
And you've seen,
and none of us. And the peripheral is exactly, which doesn't make any sense. Like when we're looking at something, our peripheral is very blurry. Like we're barely processing peripheral, you know, and our eyes are sort of darting all around, like taking it and building a picture. And so, what I understand about, you know, visual perception doesn't really match up with this sort of like jump to basically a video feed. Now, of course, to make these episodes, it would be very cumbersome to have to like account for all that or have video feeds that were very jumbled and blah, blah, blah. So
now, the state of the art that I've seen last year is, you might have seen this too, where so they read... They have people looking at things, like looking at numbers, looking at letters, looking at shapes, looking at images. And as they're doing that, they are reading with electrodes the brain activity.
Yep.
They're dumping all of that into a machine learning model paired with what they were actually seeing. And later, they show the person something, they detect what the brain activity is, and the machine learning model then recreates what the person is probably seeing.
Right.
It's certainly not a perfect picture. But you can tell what it is, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe but that's different also because it's got like electrodes and all these things. I don't know their little device, what it's actually doing.
Right. That's the other thing. It's like they always insert these devices on their temple.
Yeah.
And if you understand the layout of the brain, that wouldn't make any sense.
It was in the temple.
You'd want to put it in the back of your head. Actually, if it's primarily a visual monitor, which it primarily was, you know what I mean? Like the vitals could be taken anywhere in the brain, presumably, and the GPS could be anywhere, right?
In fact, if they had put it up the front, the easiest thing would be to like block her ability to make some choices.
Right.
She would not take the cocaine.
Right. So they always put it in the temple because I think people kind of associate your temple with your eyes. You know what I mean?
I always, okay, maybe, yeah.
And you.
I think people think like, this is me, you know?
Yeah, and it is. It's your executive. But if you're thinking in terms of visual, it's mainly in the back, but it's also through the middle. Like you have some processing that happens on the way to the back. But anyway. But those are pretty. Now, I'm guessing that most people are going to see this episode as like the worst episode of the season. That's my prediction. When people rank this season, I'm sure a lot of people are going, because when you think about the full season, which you haven't seen yet.
I will say the third episode, which we'll talk about at some other time.
Which one's that again?
That is, what is it called?
Well, what is it about?
Okay, hold on.
Is it Crocodile? No, that's the one that.
No.
Metalhead.
No, Metalhead is.
Hang the DJ.
Is Hang the DJ number 3?
Well, I don't know, but there's the rom-com. And then must be Crocodile, where the woman spirals downward.
Yeah, Crocodile. Yes, okay. So Crocodile, I loved.
Yeah.
But my favorite so far, and I've only seen 4, is Hang the DJ.
Okay, yeah, me too.
So
so let's rank them. Yeah. Let's take a break first when we get back. Let's do that.
But I haven't seen all of them. So.
All right, back from the break. All right, let's conclude with ranking of episodes for season 4. You love Hang the DJ. That's your favorite?
That's so far of the 4 I've seen. That's my numero uno.
What about the Star Trek episode?
Numero dos.
What about Crocodile?
Numero tres.
And Archangel.
Numero 4.
Yeah, I have a similar ranking. I didn't rank them that way, but my favorite were Hang the DJ and the USS Callister.
So great. So both of us love those.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to do that now. I'm going to bump up Archangel into my favorite category. So I'm going to put Hang the DJ, USS Callister, and Archangel are 3 just really great episodes. And the Hang the DJ, which we'll get into in another episode, is so good. I mean, I've watched it twice now.
By the way, in my head, even though I know and I never thought it wasn't, for some reason, the actor reminded me of Stephen Merchant. You know Stephen Merchant?
Yeah.
And for some reason, when I picture the episode, as I'm watching it, after I'm watching it, and right now, I picture Stephen Merchant.
Man, I love that guy. He is so funny.
Yeah.
God, that kid's so funny. But that kid is one of the kids in Peaky Blinders. Have you seen that TV show?
I watched a couple episodes, yeah.
So the younger brother, he's sort of a tough guy.
Yeah.
That's him.
Oh, interesting.
But he looks completely different in Hang the DJ. Yeah.
He does. I didn't write.
Man, I can't wait to talk about Hang the DJ. So good. So good, yeah. Hang the DJ, hang the DJ, hang the DJ, hang the DJ.
And I love that song.
DJ. Yeah. And then Crocodile I would put in my second rank, which I would say is also good. But I felt like it was a little one-dimensional.
It was absolutely a vector,
one
straight
trick
shot.
One trick pony.
There were no twists.
But my God, turns. At the end.
Bleak.
I mean.
Bleak.
Oh my God.
And I felt both the stress. I mean, obviously I can't relate to getting so horrible, but I felt that stress of she knows.
Well, don't spoil because we didn't.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the last 2 and then an okay is Metalhead, which you're about to watch.
Okay.
I consider that one to be, it's okay. It doesn't really feel like a Black Mirror episode actually, because it has some Black Mirror like elements to it, but it even is more one-dimensional than Crocodile. Interesting though, and bleak, very bleak. But the worst one is by far is episode 6.
Really, the last one?
Yeah, Black Museum. I can imagine a lot of people loving this episode, but I was like bored and I didn't care about it. And we'll get into it when we review that episode.
Is it like, remember we didn't like the bees one?
Yeah, no. The last episode of season 4, Black Museum, is bad in a whole new way. Yeah.
Well, I'll do my homework. I'll watch the last 2 episodes, and the next one we can do all 4.
Okay.
All right.
But let's rank our favorite and least favorite of the entire
series so far. I gotta say, man, I still think I'll put the Christmas one as my number 1.
Yeah, I recently rewatched that one too.
It's so great.
Yeah.
But I'll say that the Hang the DJ, like, it seriously comes close because I don't know. There's so many things right with that episode.
Yeah.
So I'll probably go Christmas, Hang the DJ.
Me too. Oh my God.
Right.
We're simpatico.
Yeah. After that, I am at risk of forgetting some really amazing ones, but I think there's a couple season 1 things that I might bump up. Let me think. Okay, so the one with the robot is really great. The Entire History of You is pretty good, but I think we had some issues.
That's the one where he is a lawyer and he...
Right.
Yeah.
The video game one in season 3 was pretty good. But what was my favorite in season 3?
Well, okay, so I'll list them off. You have the pig one. You have the 15 million merits one. You know,
it's good. It's good, yeah.
You have the entire...
Pig one is a non-contender, so bye.
Right. The Entire History... Well, so that's one of your least favorites,
Yes,
right?
numero last.
Yeah. You have The Entire History of You, which is...
Yeah, that's in my top...
The jealous guy.
Oh, wait, the jealous guy, right? No, that one I had some issues with, but it's not bad.
Be Right Back.
That's in my top 5, maybe.
You have White Bear.
Which is the one where she's getting chased.
Yeah.
And it's a game show. Yeah.
You have the Waldo moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have White Christmas.
Love.
You have Nosedive.
Oh, yeah, that's a great one. That's also top 5 for me.
You have Playtest.
I like that one. Top 10.
Shut Up and Dance, which is the pedophile one.
Oh, Bleak. Yeah, top 10.
San Junipero.
Oh, I love that one.
Yeah.
Top 7 now.
Men Against Fire, which is the soldier one where they see the enemy as a zombie.
Yeah, I like the premise. I like that one. Just bored me a bit.
Yeah, it's kind of again one trick pony. Hated in the Nation, which is the B one.
Oh, so I think that one's my second to last.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. so for me, it's Hated in the Nation, the pig one, and then Black Museum.
And Oh wow. Okay.
So those 3 are in my last.
It is in which order? Is Black Museum? They're just
the pig one is I hated that one. Yeah. The B one was okay.
Okay.
Black Museum I would put second to last.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're very close on this.
Yeah.
Because
So my favorites are White Christmas, Hang the DJ, Playtest, Archangel, which you wouldn't put in your top.
I wouldn't put it in my top 5, but you're right. I can see why you did that.
And I when I looked at all the episodes, Crocodile, I kind of liked it, even though it's like pretty bleak. I kind of liked it. Be Right Back, I really love. Yeah, Nosedive. Man, I guess if I had to choose,
wait a minute,
I would go top. If I go top 5, I'd go White Christmas, Hang the DJ, Nosedive. Man, I don't know. It's hard to, there's a second category where there's just a lot of great episodes. San Junipero, Shut Up and Dance, White Bear I thought was really great. Be Right Back is probably one of my favorites because it's just such a great story.
Yeah.
15 Merits I really like too because that was the episode that made me realize that this show could actually be worth watching.
That's true because that's the very next one after you've seen something that makes you want to stop.
Right.
We've talked about this before, how you told me about this show and I had heard about it, but I hadn't seen anything. You're like, yeah, I watched Black Mirror. I watched the first episode. It's really bad.
Yeah.
And
it was recommended to me by a few people. And I was like, I completely lost respect for those people recommending it.
And that's all I had heard about Black Mirror. So I wrote it off. I'm like, okay, I'm not watching that. And about a year later, my friend Michael's like, dude, so you've seen all of Black Mirror, right? And I'm like, no, wait, I heard some really bad stuff about what? Like, yeah, I heard. He's like, oh, no. you basically have to skip the first episode.
Oh, he didn't like the first episode.
Right,
either.
right.
Oh, okay.
And so he's like, no, the first one's completely different. And then he told me, like, just watch the other ones. They're amazing. And that's when
I wonder how many people just don't get into it because of the first episode.
But I've gotten into some altercations.
Oh, yeah, because people love the first episode.
They're like, oh, it's so brilliant. It's so great.
Well, Drain and Corey, that's one of their favorite episodes.
Oh, my gosh.
Right? I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we had an altercation on that one.
Yeah. All right. Well, what's the final word on the first 2 episodes of Black Mirror? Worth the watching?
You know what? First of all, you massively convinced me that I was being too harsh on the second one. But the first
Why do you think you were being harsh on it anyway? Like what?
I think there was something about it that presented this all or nothing decision. Like, I guess I felt somewhat of a well, any monitoring of your children is terrible, as opposed to what it was, which is you pointed out. It's like, no, look, we're already headed in this direction. A lot of these things are already possible, and
it felt you didn't have empathy for the mom.
I had no empathy for the mom.
You were like, oh, bad decision. You deserve what you got.
Yes,
interesting.
And so I've now upgraded it to a 7 and downgraded my complaints to the blurring logic.
maybe they made a mistake then. They should have made the beginning of the episode more understandable.
Yeah.
To have taken that step.
Yeah.
You know
But I think you solved it when you said how they did it with the I'll be right back. I think that even if it wasn't so drawn out, I think that would have helped me.
Yeah.
But anyways, but I think the first one is an amazing episode. Anyone who didn't like it because of this or that, I'm sorry for you because it was great.
Right.
Very enjoyable.
If I was to recommend an episode that someone watch, having never seen Black Mirror, that would be the first one.
Yes.
Because it's the most cinematic, it's the most fun, it's the most action-packed, it's the most understandable. It has all the Black Mirror elements to it, you know what I mean?
Very geeky. You know,
yeah,
it's great.
so I would recommend that.
I love that he's got the whole VHS collection.
Yeah. and the DVDs.
And the DVDs,
Yeah. I wonder if they thought about actually doing Star Trek, or if they thought, you know what I mean? Because they're basically doing Star Trek.
Of course they were.
And so I wonder why they didn't.
Yeah, that would be an interesting discussion. Was it simply a matter of rights and stuff, or was it more like the freedom to tell the right story?
But I can't imagine how it would have interfered. It's the right story. You know what I mean? It's exactly Star Trek.
Well, maybe they could take some more liberties. Like, for example, it didn't have to be really Khan. It didn't have to be really the Enterprise. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
But I see it both ways. It could have gone both ways.
I mean, I think they masterfully made it Star Trek without making it Star Trek.
Oh, absolutely.
Like there's times when you see a cola can and it just says, it looks exactly like Coke.
Yeah.
But it just says cola.
Dude, when the episode started, I got that feeling of my youth. Like, oh, yeah. I got a little bit of a bubbly, I felt like I was back in a Star Trek episode.
Yeah, they really nailed it, man. It was just so good. Like the way they wrote that mini episode, the way Kirk is like, I wonder if they even just stole an episode of old Trek and just recreated it. Because there are certain beats that Captain Kirk, does that would felt so familiar.
Right.
And
I love of course, he always does the opposite of what the crew recommends, right?
Yeah.
Like, we got to do this. It's like, no, let him go,
Steady, Sulu. Hold it steady, Captain.
We gotta go.
Steady. Fire. All right. Well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Thanks for joining us out there. Please take care of yourself because
you deserve it.